Okay, so welcome to this seminar on Dharma. So what is Dharma? A long time ago, our ancestors found out three essential things about human beings. The first one is human beings want to be happy. That'll be $200, please. Thank you for coming. You're welcome. Regardless of color, creed, or culture, regardless of who we are, male or female. We all want to be happy. The second thing they found was that in order to have durable happiness, lasting happiness, it is better to live with nature rather than against nature. Now, for short-term pleasure, you can live against nature. You can jump off a cliff and feel the air through your hair and the exhilarating feeling in your stomach until nature catches up to you. You hit the floor, right? For long-term durable fulfillment, we have to understand how to live with nature. So everyone's going, yeah, that sounds pretty good, but how do we do it? So the third part is that in order to find durable happiness and live with nature, you have to understand Dharma. And Dharma is one thing. The word Dharma means universal law, or in the case of us personally, the purpose, the universal law that guides our lives. But it is useful to look at Dharma in 5 different categories. The first of these is the physical. And the science that arose to describe the physical dharma of human beings is Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is called the science of life. And mostly, not all, but mostly deals with everything from the skin in. What makes you a human physiological being and how to optimize that for longevity and health. So the areas affected are everything from the skin in, for the most part. And the element associated here is earth. Now, there's one more category that we need to put here. And we're going to call that the physical correlate. So the earth has to do with the earth. The physical correlate here is plants and food. And as many of you know, there's a saying in Ayurveda that says, if your diet is not right, no medicine will work. If your diet is right, no medicine is needed. So even in the Sanskrit, and of course I can't get away from this, but even in the Sanskrit, the word for plant is oshadhi. The word for medicine is oshadam. These two are intimately related. The word for the word for medicine and the word for plant are essentially the same word. So Ayurveda fundamentally has to do with how to understand the dharma of the physical body. Make sense? To understand the dharma of your environment. The science of Vastu was developed. Vastu Shastra, otherwise just known as Vastu. Vastu, you may know in different cultures, is called Feng Shui. We call it interior design. It's essentially learning to live with the environment, everything from the skin out. From our skin to the skin of the planet, to the atmosphere. So Vastu has a lot to say about how we treat our environment, how we live in this world. And Vastu and Ayurveda are closely related. For example, one of the fundamental precepts of Vastu, and I only have a little bit of board here, so is that the center should always remain empty. the center of any space. And the word for that is called the Brahmasthana, the place of the spirit. In Ayurveda, Ayurveda honors this principle because we are microcosms of the universe. We're microcosms of our environment. So if this law is true in Vastu, it should be true in Ayurveda. In Ayurveda, you should eat meals 5 or 6 hours apart. Why is that? Because we also have a center. It's called the GI tract. And that center also should be empty. Because when our center is empty, it allows the spirit to come in. How is that? Well, physiologically, the GI tract, the gut, is responsible for 95% of serotonin production. It's responsible for 75% of our immune system. When we dumb it down by forcing it to constantly digest our food, we're in essence saying, here, digest this food, you can get to immunity later. You can get to maintaining health later. And eventually our health breaks down. So this principle of Vastu, which says keep the center empty, is the same as the dietary practices in Ayurveda, which state that fasting should be an essential part of good health. Now, this isn't just related to Ayurveda. What is the definition of yoga as per the Yoga Sutras? Anybody? Yogaha chitta vritti nirodha tadadrashtu svarupeva sthanam vritti sarupya mitratra. Yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind stuff. Then the seer abides in itself. When there are fluctuations, the seer becomes one with the fluctuations. Well, vritti, this word vritti means wave or fluctuation. When there is food moving through the gut, the villi and microvilli in the body literally create vrittis. And so, by extension, if you have food in your gut and there is stuff going on in your stomach, you can't have yoga. Because yoga is chitta vritti nirodha. It's the cessation of all vritti, the fluctuation. Which is why yogis and yoginis are very disciplined at fasting, at controlling their food intake. Because they understand that even though you might be very good at sitting, you've done all your asanas to make sure that you're comfortable, but if you're still digesting that cheeseburger from last night, no matter how many mantras you say, part of your mind is here. Because the gut is a second brain. It's called the enteric nervous system, and it has its independent wiring, just as our brains have their own independent wiring. So this is our second thinking center, and as long as it's busy digesting our food, then you can't have chitta vritti nirodha. Unless you're a fully enlightened master, then it's okay. But to get there, we have to learn to keep the center open. Make sense? So in this way, Vastu and Ayurveda are linked. Vastu is understanding the relationship between you and your environment. Ayurveda is the relationship between you and your internal environment. Okay. Then, and the element associated with Vastu is water. So, water, both in Western culture and in Eastern culture, is a source of life, prosperity, and culture itself. So a lot of the rules of Vastu have to do with where water goes on your property. One of these rules is that water should always be to the east and slightly to the north, but never to the west. So properties that have water, swimming pools, wells, and we'll be talking a little bit more about this on Saturday and on Sunday. But property that has its water to the east is considered lucky. property that has its water to the west and to the south is considered unlucky in that there are complications. We're going to cover some remedies over the next couple of days on how to remedy these things if you have them. But fundamentally, that's the rule of Vastu. Now, one of the words in Sanskrit for east is purva. Everybody say purva. Purva. Purva means east, but it also means before. So here's another link with Vastu and Ayurveda. And some of you, those of you who have your handouts, will have something that I call the top 5 things that you should be doing but are not doing, according to Ayurveda. And one of these is drinking water before your meals. And I was like, all right, yeah, I know that. That's okay. Studies that were recently conducted on overweight individuals showed that when they drank water 15 to 30 minutes before food, they not only lost weight, but they changed their body composition. That means that not only did they go from being a large pear to a smaller pear shape, they actually changed the shape of their bodies without any additional exercise, without any other changes in their diet, compared to the placebo group.